In this podcast episode, Joe Rogan and comedian Greg Fitzsimmons engage in a wide-ranging conversation covering current socio-political issues, conspiracy theories, technology and AI advancements, the comedy scene, and personal anecdotes. Their discussion touches on topics such as social media censorship, geopolitical tensions, historical events, and emerging trends in entertainment and technology. The conversation also delves into the intricacies of whistleblowing, the history of stand-up comedy, psychedelic therapy, and cutting-edge developments in artificial intelligence. The episode opens with a reflection on the current state of the world, marked by political tension, social media addiction, and misinformation. Greg shares his struggle with constant exposure to negative news and the overwhelming nature of global crises such as potential conflict in Iran and censorship scandals. They discuss the surprising legal rulings in England, where squatters can claim ownership of unoccupied homes, and how social media platforms, including TikTok, are restricting content critical of immigration, Israel, and other sensitive topics. The duo highlights alarming reports of thousands of arrests related to social media posts and the broader implications of surveillance and speech control online. They examine the responsibility of private social media companies versus traditional broadcast networks regarding content censorship and the importance of debate as a countermeasure to hate speech over outright suppression. Greg and Joe explore the vital role whistleblowers play in exposing governmental and corporate misconduct, citing historical cases like Edward Snowden and Stephen Donziger's battles against big corporations. They raise concerns about the decreasing access journalists have to sensitive national security information, especially relating to agencies like the Pentagon and FBI, where agreements increasingly limit what can be reported. The challenges of balancing transparency and national security are examined through examples such as Operation Broken Crown, a recent massive FBI gang raid involving the Latin Kings. The discussion considers the tension between public knowledge and the necessity for secrecy in operational law enforcement to ensure effective action. Delving into local history, Greg recounts a disturbing episode involving the forced removal of black laborers from the Palm Beach area in the early 20th century. He discusses how black workers who built the infrastructure were later expelled under suspicious circumstances involving a celebratory party that coincided with their homes being mysteriously burned. The conversation touches on the erasure and controversial different versions of this history. The segment also co-covers ongoing racial segregation issues, including anecdotes about private clubs that continued discriminatory practices against Jews and women, illustrating how systemic prejudice persisted well into the 21st century. Greg shares fascinating historical insights, including the origin of powdered wigs as a fashion response to hair loss caused by syphilis among European nobility. The conversation naturally spirals to modern scandals involving Jeffrey Epstein, bringing up an unverified claim related to Bill Gates and sexually transmitted infections, highlighting the complex webs of leverage and blackmail involved. The episode touches on the implications of Epstein's influence over science and politics, discussing how his manipulation of respected academics could have impacted drug approvals and international relations, with particular focus on Israeli intelligence matters. The podcast shifts to discussions about escalating geopolitical issues, including recent Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon targeting Hezbollah and increasing military activity in Iran's region. Greg remarks on Israel's unparalleled expertise in intelligence and covert operations, likening their strategic patience and precision to counterinsurgency measures, minimizing civilian casualties. The segment includes a humorous but pointed observation about the complexity and danger inherent in these conflicts and the precarious state of global affairs. Commentary transitions to technological advancements, focusing on Elon Musk's latest projects, including the halt on Model S and X production and the ambitious rollout plans for the Optimus humanoid robot. They discuss the potential for Optimus to transform elder care and home assistance by providing companionship and help while acknowledging concerns related to privacy and AI ethics. The conversation touches on recent SpaceX launches, reusability of rockets, and the upcoming Artemis mission around the moon, expressing skepticism about the Apollo moon landings with detailed analysis of photographic and technical inconsistencies. They consider challenges like radiation exposure and lingering questions about the authenticity of the moon missions, highlighting how advances in technology fuel ongoing conspiracy theories. The discussion turns to comedy culture and the evolving scene, with Greg detailing his experiences with open mic nights and development programs designed to nurture new talent. They compare comedy ecosystems in New York, Los Angeles, Vegas, and Austin, emphasizing the importance of community, diversity of backgrounds, and the tension between commercial success and artistic integrity. The pair critique the rise of social media influencers, with minimal comedic skills, performing in clubs due to follower numbers rather than talent, and stress the necessity of supportive venues that cultivate real stand-up artists. The conversation also touches on the pitfalls of college comedy gigs with inexperienced audiences and the role of festivals like Skankfest in maintaining comedy's edge and freedom. Greg and Joe explore concerns about artificial intelligence, especially as it pertains to voice cloning, deepfake videos, and the use of AI in creating fake endorsements, podcasts, and live performances. They discuss legal battles involving celebrities like Sarah Silverman over AI-generated voice copyright and the growing ability of AI to mimic personalities convincingly. The implications for misinformation, political manipulation, and personal reputation are stressed. They also examine emerging AI-driven gaming technology capable of generating dynamic, explorable worlds on demand, proposing a future where immersive virtual environments become commonplace, enhancing or even replacing traditional gaming experiences. The conversation highlights recent lawsuits against tech giants like Google for unauthorized recording of private conversations through smart devices and the ubiquitous nature of data collection. They consider how this data is commodified and exploited for political, financial, and control purposes, drawing parallels to government use of facial recognition and surveillance technology to track protesters and citizens. Greg recounts stories of activists targeted at airports and under constant monitoring, stressing the chilling effect on free expression and public dissent. Greg shares personal views and anecdotal evidence regarding the resurgence of psychedelics, such as psilocybin for therapeutic use, noting progressive legislation in states like New Jersey and cautious political resistance elsewhere. They discuss the potential mental health benefits and risks, referencing regulated administration protocols akin to ketamine therapy. The episode also touches on the cultural normalization of mushroom use and the darker realities of drug misuse and mental illness exacerbated by uncontrolled exposure. Additionally, the psychological effects of drugs, suggestion experiments, and historical anecdotes about early pornography trends and societal taboos are briefly explored. The chat revisits stand-up comedy history, discussing legendary figures from the Boston scene and beyond, including Bill Hicks, Stephen Wright, and Teddy Beresford. Greg recalls the dynamics and rivalries of the comedy circuits in the 1980s and 1990s, the challenges newcomers faced, and shifts in industry focus from purely artistic expression to commercialization and influencer-driven content. They reflect on classic comedy venues and traditions, including the Ice House and Friars Club, stressing the value of nurturing diverse comedic voices and the changes in audience engagement and expectations over time. Greg and Joe discuss Tom O'Neill, author of the acclaimed Charles Manson biography Chaos, praising his meticulous research and storytelling ability that unveil new perspectives on infamous criminal activities and secret government operations. The conversation includes entertaining stories about O'Neill's nonlinear working style and dedication. They segue to Andy Kaufman's legacy, highlighting the antics of his sidekick Bob Zmuda, who continued Kaufman's tradition of blending performance art with real-life confusion and provocations. Anecdotes about Kaufman's time as a busboy, his Tony Clifton persona, and the impact of method acting on portrayals of his life highlight comedy's intersection with avant-garde expression and cultural history. The show concludes with reflections on pop culture intersections, including Mel Brooks' profound influence on comedy and filmmaking, notably through works like Blazing Saddles and Spaceballs, and their inspirations for modern technology designs such as Tesla's vehicles and SpaceX rockets. The performers speculate on the continued integration of technology, artificial environments, and live performance, with mentions of immersive shows like those at the Sphere in Las Vegas, and the lasting cultural impact of iconic films like The Wizard of Oz. Greg shares details about his upcoming performances at clubs in Philadelphia, Sacramento, and Lexington, encouraging listeners to check out his stand-up and podcast work. The conversation references their ongoing friendship and past collaborative experiences, including early podcast recordings at venues such as the Ice House, and their mutual support of comedy communities. They reinforce the importance of fostering artistic environments that balance innovation, creative freedom, and audience connection in the evolving landscape of entertainment.